Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everyone is happy and healthy. We are continuing our unit on functions, and today we're going to be evaluating functions. So if I will look at the word evaluate, actually, if I look at the standard, it starts with the word evaluate. The word evaluate means to find the value of. So we are going to be finding the value of a function for given elements of its domain. So in the previous lesson, we learned that the domain are all of the x values. And then we're going to interpret the statements in function notation. So we also talked about function notation in last class. And remember, function notation simply means we're going to write it as f of x. This is going to change slightly today. We're going to change that x, but that's still function notation. So students will be able to find the value of a function given its domain value of x and explains what it means in a real-world context. So, prior knowledge, before we even think about this success criteria or what you need to do in order to be successful, let's think about the prior knowledge. So what are the order of operations? Well, we first worry about parentheses. And within parentheses, there is a thing called an absolute values symbol. And an absolute value is at two long lines with numbers and variables in between. So if I have -3 inside this absolute value is the distance from 0. Also, it means whatever the value is inside as a positive. So the absolute value of -3 is going to be 3. So really what you're doing when you're doing parentheses, you're doing whatever's inside the parentheses. Absolute values can be the same thing. You have to do what's inside before you do what's outside. E stands for exponents. So I always put M and D together. That stands for multiply and divide. But the most important part is to recognize that this is as you go from left to right. And then we have our add or subtract. And again, we are doing this in order that we see from left to right. So what is function notation? What it means is we are substituting or subbing the y for f of x. And then you can actually also put the value you plug in into this parentheses. Or so to do this, you're going to write the domain value for each variable in the expression. The domain value is the x. So you're going to find the x, and you're going to write it. You're going to take whatever we're supposed to put in for it, and you're going to replace it for the x inside parentheses. So everywhere you see an x. So in this example, we have f of x is equal to 3x plus 5x minus 9. When f of x is equal to -2. All we're going to do is take this -2 and plug it in for the x. So everywhere we see an x, we put parentheses and we put our -2 inside those parentheses. Then we use the order of operations or the Desmos scientific calculator to find the value. I'm perfectly fine with you checking your work or with you putting this entire expression exactly as it's written into Desmos. You have to put the parentheses. It has to look exactly like this. Or 3 times -2 is a -6. 5 times -2 is a -10. We always go from left to right as we multiply. And we bring down the -9. Then we go from left to right, which means we have -16 plus a -10, which is -6 plus a -10 gave us a -16 minus 9 is -27. So please notice that when I rewrote the value using function notation, that my -2 replaced the x. This is saying the function of -2 is equal to -27. So if I were to graph something like this, my -2 is going to be my x, and my -27 would be my y. And so I would go over 2 and down 27. Okay? So, excuse me. We are going to do the guided practice together. And then maybe come up with some things to remember as we're doing this. You are going to then try these with a partner. Then you're going to do those on your own. I am going to go over the word problems for you, actually at least the first 4. So, let's go over the guided practice. So it says write the domain value. That is 4. So we're going to write the number 4 inside parentheses for each x or each variable in the expression. So I'm simply going to write my absolute value symbol. I put 4 inside my parentheses, -1, -2. And then I use the order of operations. So I'm going to do PEMDAS. So I have absolute value symbol. That's 4 minus 1. And 4 minus 1 is equal to 3. So I have the absolute value of 3 minus 2. The absolute value of 3 is 3. So I have 3 minus 2 equals 1. And so I'm going to find or restate this, because then the next step is restate the value using function notation. So we're going to say f of 4 is equal to, and what is our answer? 1. Let's see this again. So again, I take my -3 and I'm going to plug it in for every x value that I see. I'm going to rewrite the entire expression. 3 absolute value, -3 plus 5 minus 1. So we're doing what's inside the parentheses first. -3 plus 5 is 2. So we have 3 times 2 minus 1. 3 times 2 is 6. So we have 6 minus 1, which equals 5. And we rewrite this as f of -3 is equal to 5. Here, there are 2 x's, so you have to recall both of them. So we have a negative, parentheses, 4 squared, plus 6, parentheses, 4, minus 4. Now we have to follow our order of operations, so we're going to do our exponents first. So this is 4 squared. What is 4 squared? Well, 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16. So we have a -16 plus 6 times 4 is 24 minus 4. And now I go from left to right. -16 plus 24 is 8. So we have 8 minus 4, which equals 4. Then we rewrite it. Last step is to rewrite it in function notation. So f of 4, or function of 4, is equal to 4. So again, all I do is take my -1 and put it where my x is. -4, parentheses, -1, plus 4. And I'm going to show you how we use Desmos so we have, if you had absolute value symbols, they are this A with the inequality sign. Okay. A with the 2 lines on either side. That's the absolute value symbol. But our previous problem was -4, parentheses, -1, close our parentheses, plus 4. It does all the math for you if you do this. So please notice that this is exactly the way we've written it in function notation with the substitution. Nothing is different. We don't have extra terms. We don't have extra plus or minus signs. We've done nothing other than putting the number in for parentheses. So we again write it in function notation. F of -1 is equal to 8. And then the last one. So -2, parentheses, and just taking this and putting it in here. 17/3. You should not be scared by having a fraction, because you're going to use Desmos. So you go to delete all the way. So you have -2, parentheses. You're going to hit your AB button, which is here above the right arrow, and it becomes 17/3. 17/3. Don't forget to close your parentheses, plus 5. And then because there are fractions in it, we're going to leave it as a fraction, -19/3. So f of 17/3 is -19/3. So things to remember. Don't drop a negative. So don't lose any negatives or numbers or signs. Rewrite it as f of the number equals the answer. Use Desmos. Okay, you do the ones with the partner. Once you and your partner have correctly answered all of the questions, then move to the back on your own. But let's look at the other side of the back. There are some word problems because the objective today is to look at in terms of context as well. So the first thing you're going to do is skim the word problem for the given domain value. That is the only thing that is new, and then everything else is the same. So the daily pay in US dollars for a certain job is defined as the following function f of x, where x equals the time in hours. So f of x is equal to 15x plus 10. If an employee works for 7 hours, because this is the x equals the time in hours, all I'm going to do is replace 15, put the 7 in for the x, and then use Desmos. Rewrite it as f of 7 is equal to, well, 105, it should be 115, but you please check it with a calculator. So again, all you're doing is skimming the word problem until you find the given domain value. So f of x, where x equals the time in hours. So we're looking at 3.5 hours. So what do? We take our 46, we put our 3.5 inside our parentheses, and then we add 75, and we type this into Desmos. 46 times 3.5, 46 times 3.0, 46 times 3.5, plus 75. Don't forget to put your parentheses where they're supposed to go. So $236 would be the amount. So F of 3.5 is equal to 236. And one more. So I'm reading the problem where X is equal to the number of rides, and Gabriel is going to ride 17 rides in the day. So it becomes 2 parentheses 17 plus 5. You plug the 17 in for your f of x, so f of 17 is equal to, you're going to use Desmos, you're going to put 2 parentheses 17 plus 35 is equal to 39. You do the last 3 problems. So you should have today completed those 6 problems with a partner, these 6 problems on your own using Desmos, and these 3 problems on your own. Please then go on to Delta Math and complete any missing assignments that you have.